While vocabulary provides the words needed to express ideas, grammar dictates how those words are arranged to form meaningful sentences. Without proper grammar, even a strong vocabulary can lead to misunderstandings or ambiguity. Okay, so good afternoon once again. Since we have already discussed teaching vocabulary, we will tackle an equally important concept, teaching grammar. Okay, what exactly is grammar? So again, allow me to look at my PPT. Okay, so grammar is seen as either a set of rules governing language or a descriptive system that explains how language elements combine to create meaning. So this understanding of grammar is essential because it helps explain how words can be combined in um, limitless way, limitless ways to express, allowing us to describe the world around us effectively. So, linguist David Crystal emphasizes that grammar involves analyzing language to understand its structures, enabling us to break down the complexities of language and appreciate how different elements interact to convey meaning. By studying grammar, we gain valuable insights that enhance our communication skills and deepen our understanding of language itself. So, understanding the importance of grammar in language use is again essential for effective instruction. So, to teach grammar in an engaging and beneficial way, educators should consider specific criteria when selecting teaching materials. So here are key criteria for selecting grammar teaching materials as suggested by Tomlinson 2013. Okay, so first is we have to consider the learner's age and proficiency level. So when selecting grammar teaching materials, it is significant to consider the learner's age and their level of language proficiency. Younger students often benefit from materials that are engaging and visually appealing, while older or more advanced learners like us may need resources that challenge them and introduce more complex grammar. So, tailoring materials to match these factors helps ensure that students can understand and apply grammatical concepts effectively. So, another consideration is methodology's alignment with expectations and educational culture. So, the teaching material should align with methodologies used in educational environment. This means that um, resources should reflect the teaching methods that teachers and institutions prefer. When materials are consistent with these expectations, they can enhance the learning process and help students achieve better outcomes. So we also have to consider for the relevance and appeal of context for teaching grammar. So very important. It is very important for teaching matters to be appealing to learners. So, using real life situations, interesting topics, or in examples that students can relate to make grammar lesson more engaging. So, when students see the connection between grammar and their own lives, they are more likely to be motivated to learn and use language use language effectively. And then finally, we have to consider grammar structure, meaning, and real world use. So, teaching material should clearly explain the structure and meaning of grammatical rules while demonstrating how these rules are used in everyday language. By showing students how grammar operates in real life context, how they function, they can better understand how to use it in their own speaking and writing. So, this approach helps learners develop a deeper comprehension of language and its practical applications. So, that concludes my part. For further discussion, the next reporter will do the honor. While without grammar, very little can be conveyed. Without vocabulary, nothing can be conveyed. Wilkins, 1972. While grammar helps structure sentences and refine meaning, vocabulary provides the actual content needed to convey thoughts. Without grammar, messages may be unclear, but it is still somewhat understandable. However, without vocabulary, communication becomes impossible because there are no words to express ideas. So, good afternoon to each and all. I am Maureen Choi S. Amago, and this afternoon we will be tackling about chapter 5, developing specific types of materials in teaching vocabulary. Before we formally begin, please allow me to look at my copy of the PPT for reference. Okay, so learning vocabulary is essential because it is the foundation of communication. It allows us to express our thoughts, understand others, and take part in meaningful conversations. Without a strong vocabulary, other language skills like listening, reading, writing, and speaking can also be um, affected. So, as teachers, we won't allow that, right? As teachers, we want to give our students the best support in their language learning. Since vocabulary plays a big role in communication, we must help students build a wide range of words so they can express themselves clearly and confidently. Um, teaching so in this sense, teaching vocabulary is just as important as learning it. It's not just about memorizing words, but about understanding and using them in real situations. So, let's begin by asking, what is vocabulary? So, it refers to the words within a language or a specific set of words being acquired. So, when we say words within a language, it means that all the language that exists in that particular language. Like for example, in English, every English words you know are part of its vocabulary. When we say a specific set of words, it means that it is it refers to a targeted selection of words based on a certain context, field, or level of learning. For example, the medical field, words like MRI scan, surgery, prescription, operations are part of the medical vocabulary. While these words belong to the English language, they are also considered specialized medical terms used in a specific profession. So, vocabulary is originally used in the 1900s as as a list of words with explanations, meaning late explanations. Its meaning later expanded to represent a person's or a group's vocabulary. That's why vocabulary is now synonymous with lexes and lexicons. Lexes refers to all words in a language, while lexicon is a person's or group's vocabulary. So, scholars also define it as a collection of target language words by Noonan 2000s, and Richard and Smith defined it as a set of lexemes including single words, compound words, and idioms. So, lexemes are base forms of words. It is their most basic dictionary version before any changes like tense or pluralization. They represent word families rather than just individual word forms. So, it also includes word combinations and expressions and that carry meaning. For example, run is a lexeme while running, run, runs are its different forms. Similarly, vocabulary includes compound words like toothpaste, notebook, and idioms like break a leg or spell the T. And Jackson and Amvela defined it as a synonymous with lexes and lexicons. So again, as I mentioned, lexis refers to the complete set of words in a language. It's all the words in a language, including their meanings, how they're used, and how they're used. Okay, so on the other hand, a lexicon is a person's or a group's vocabulary, the words they know and actively use in conversations or in communications. So, vocabulary is essential for language learning as it enables expression and comprehension by connecting meaning and understanding. So, why? Because comprehension comes first. If you have a broad vocabulary, you can express yourself more more clearly, confidently, and effectively. The more words you know, the easier it is for you to convey ideas without struggling to find the right terms. Okay. It also enhances comprehension because understanding more words allows you to grasp spoken and written text more quickly and accurately. A strong vocabulary helps in following conversations, reading complex materials, and even picking up nuances in meaning. So, since vocabulary is essential for communication, it's not just about knowing words but also about um, learning them effectively. This means teaching vocabulary cannot be a random, a spur of the moment decision. It requires a structured approach to ensure effective learning and retention. So, what should we consider when choosing materials and resources for teaching vocabulary? So, educators have many insights on this, but to make it simpler, we can follow the 4Ds of vocabulary learning. So, yeah, vocabulary learning. It's a framework both that helps guide both teachers and learners through a systematic process of acquiring and mastering new words. So this is the 4Ds. This is how it goes. Okay. So first, you have to diagnose or assess your students' strengths and weaknesses so that you'll be able to identify what materials could meet their needs. This can be done through diagnostic tests, as the it suggests, and vocabulary quizzes or sentence construction activities. So once their proficiency level is identified, you can use strategies like reading exercises, word games, and writing tasks to enhance their vocabulary skills. Now, second, you have to determine or identify your students' learning preferences to enhance vocabulary acquisition. Some learn better through visual aids, others through listening, like me. I'm a auditory learner, and some through hands-on activities. Knowing their preferences helps in creating engaging and effective lessons. Then, you have to choose and decide the most effective instructional strategies, including differentiated activities and level appropriate reading materials. This ensures students get tailored instruction such as scaffolded exercises, group works, discussions, and digital tools to support their vocabulary growth. Now, finally, you have to develop or create teaching materials that address word form, meaning, and usage while considering available resources. This can include worksheets, flashcards, digital apps, and reading passages that match students' levels and needs. So, in summary, the 4Ds: diagnose, decide, and develop. So, diagnose, determine, decide, and develop provide a structured approach to teaching vocabulary. So, similarly, as Nation 2001, as cited in Tomlinson 2013, outline key aspects and components of vocabulary teaching as well as activities that support vocabulary acquisition. So, here's a table that presents a structured approach to vocabulary learning. Okay. So, in the form aspect, form focuses on pronunciation and word structure. So, in spoken form, um, activities like pronouncing words and reading aloud help students improve their pronunciation and fluency. In the word parts component, exercises such as filling word part tables and building complex words teach students about prefixes, suffixes, and root words, making it easier to understand and form new words. So, you also have the meaning. So, meaning helps students understand word definitions and relationships. So, in the concept and reference component, finding common meanings and choosing the right meaning allows students to differentiate between multiple definitions of a word. And then in the associations component, activities like finding substitutes or synonyms and classifying words help students build connections between words, improving accuracy in writing and speaking. Now, use emphasizes how words function in real communication. So it's more about practical usage. So in the collocates component, learning to classify items in a concordance and finding collocates helps students understand which words naturally go together. So on the constraints on use component, identifying constraints and classifying words under style headings teach students the appropriate use of words in different contexts, such as formal versus informal settings. Okay, so understanding vocabulary involves learning its form, its meaning, and use, and to effectively reinforce these aspects, teachers can incorporate engaging activities that help students grasp pronunciation, relationships, and contextual usage. Okay, so here are activities for teaching vocabularies. So, like for example, a word map activity. This one. So, this activity helps students develop a deeper understanding of word meanings by organizing information systematically. It focuses on three key questions. What is it? What is it like? And what are some examples? So these questions guide students in defining a word, describing its characteristics, and providing relevant examples. By breaking down a word in this way, students can see relationships between concepts and they can improve their retention and develop critical thinking. We can also have another one, a vocabulary charade. In this activity, words are written on cards and students take turns acting them out without speaking while their teammates guess the word within a time limit. So, points are awarded for correct answers and the game continues until all players have participated. So, this strategy reinforces word meanings by connecting vocabulary with physical actions, making learning more engaging, more interactive, memorable, and also enjoyable. It also promotes teamwork, critical thinking, and quick recall of words because they are collaborating while they are actively thinking. So another activity we can have is word sorts. So in this activity, students categorize words into different groups based on shared characteristics such as meaning, word structure, or usage. So word sorts can be open where students create their own categories, or it could also be closed where they sort words into a teacher-provided categories. This activity strengthens word recognition, enhances the understanding of word relationships, and support critical thinking. So actually, there's a lot of activities for teaching vocabularies, but I could only cover a few in this discussion. However, I will provide a list. Here's a list of those who want to explore more for their vocabulary lessons. Here are the words. Here are the activity titles. Okay, so well, that concludes my report. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, I'll be reporting the second half of this topic, which is authentic materials. So, according to Hilikaya 2004 and in Nistari, defines authentic materials as exposure to real language and use in its own community. So, these materials, which can be in different forms, that afford students the opportunity to show how language works in real life and out of classroom context. They see how the target of language becomes a tool for communication in their own community. So it's just refers to the real world resources used to teach language, knowledge, skills, and often created for purposes other than language learning. So these materials provide context, relevance, and practical exposure, helping others engage with content in natural, meaningful way. So this can include, we have here the first one, audio and video materials. So examples of this are radio broadcast, TV shows, advertisement documentaries, news reports, movies, telephone conversations, and etc. We have here the next one, visual materials. So the ones that we can see visually, of course, we have here postcards, pictures or photographs, artworks, stamps, signages, symbols, street signs, picture books, posters, cartoons, infographic, etc. And I know that everyone have already seen this. So let's move on to the next one, which is printed materials. We have here examples of brochures, comics, directories, greeting cards, invitation cards, journals, magazines, maps, restaurant menus, recipe, newspapers, notices, bulletin boards, product labels, puppets, calendars, and coupons. Okay, so lastly, we have here digital materials. So digital materials, it's like the materials that we can see online on our phone. So examples of this are vlogs and videos. And I know everyone is have that meme where everyone is already starting to vlog. Okay, we also have podcasts and digital tools. Okay, so by using authentic materials, it just helps learners build a deeper connection with the language and culture, making the learning process more dynamic and engaging. So it also enhances the learner's ability to understand how language functions in real life situations rather than just in textbook examples. So that's all for teaching grammar, and let's move on to the next topic.
Good day, everyone. I will be discussing developing reading, a crucial skill that enhances comprehension, critical thinking, and communication. Reading goes beyond recognizing words. It involves understanding, analyzing, and connecting ideas. In this discussion, we will explore effective strategies to improve reading skills, common challenges learners face, and ways to overcome them. By the end of this presentation, I hope to provide valuable insights on how developing reading skills can benefit both academic and everyday life. Let's begin. Research findings indicate that reading can often be a slow and laborious decoding process, making it difficult for individuals to understand what they are reading. So this struggle with decoding not only affects comprehension but also impacts a reader's confidence, leading to lower self-esteem. When reading feels challenging, learners may become frustrated, disengaged, or even avoid reading altogether. This highlights the importance of developing effective reading strategies to improve both fluency and comprehension, ultimately fostering a more positive reading experiences. Pang highlights the key characteristics of fluent readers and how they differ from less fluent ones. Fluent readers have a large vocabulary, typically between 10,000 to 100,000 words, which helps them recognize and understand words quickly. They are also aware of different text types and how information is organized, allowing them to adjust their reading strategies based on the material. Another important factor is their prior knowledge in their first language, or L1, which they use to support their reading skills in second language, or L2. In addition, fluent readers actively monitor their understanding while reading. If they encounter difficulties, they use effective strategies such as rereading, summarizing, or making predictions to improve comprehensions. Pang also studied the differences between fluent and less fluent L2 readers by analyzing three major aspects: language knowledge and processing ability, how well they understand and use language. Another is cognitive ability. This is how they think and process information. And metacognitive strategic competence, which means their ability to plan, monitor, and adjust their reading strategies. These elements determine how efficiently a reader can comprehend text and overcome challenges in reading. GRAB, or GRABE, identifies four essential components of L2 reading fluency. This is automaticity, accuracy, reading rate, and prosodic structuring. So automaticity refers to the ability to recognize words and phrases effortlessly, allowing the readers to focus on a comprehension rather than decoding each word. Accuracy ensures that words and sentences are interpreted correctly, preventing misunderstanding. Reading rate is the speed at which a person reads while maintaining comprehension, neither too slow, which hinders understanding, nor too fast, which may lead to missing key details. Prosodic structuring involves reading with natural rhythm and intonation, which helps in understanding the structure and meaning of sentences. GRABE emphasizes that fluency is not just about reading quickly, but also about processing text automatically, accurately, and meaningfully at an optimal pace. A fluent reader can read smoothly while making sense of the text efficiently, which ultimately enhances comprehension and overall reading effectiveness. So there are four major approaches to teaching L2 reading materials. The first one is the reading comprehension-based approaches, second is the language-based approaches, and third, the skill or strategy-based approaches, and the fourth, the scheme-based approaches. The reading comprehension-based approach. This approach focuses on developing students' ability to understand written text. It typically involves rereading passages, vocabulary exercises, and comprehension tests. According to Valles, 2011, this method presents a text followed by post-reading comprehension questions, such as true or false statements, gap filling, matching exercises, and question-answer activities. One well-known example is the Headway series, which follows the structured format. Objectives of this approach. William and Mora, 1989, identified three main goals. The first is check comprehension. This is to assess whether the student has understood the text. Second is facilitate comprehension. This is when the guide learners to understand the text more effectively. And the last one is to ensure that the learner reads the text. So this is to motivate students to engage with reading materials. One of the major criticism is that comprehension questions come after reading, meaning if students fail to understand correctly, it only indicates a problem but does not diagnose its nature. It assumes that if students do not understand the issue lies in their ability, without considering other factors like vocabulary gaps or lack of background knowledge. The underlying assumption for this approach is that it assumes that a context has only one meaning, the one intended by the writer. However, this is problematic because different readers may interpret text differently based on their personal experiences and prior knowledge. Urquhart's challenges the idea of a single interpretation, stating that even L1 proficient readers cannot fully agree on the meaning of a text. Instead of simply comprehending a fixed meaning, readers achieve an interpretation influenced by their background and cognitive processes. His findings align with mental representational cognitive psychology and neuroscience, which emphasize how meaning is formed in the mind. So, in the mental representation in reading, meaning is constructed in the reader's mind based on their existing knowledge. Second is that understanding depends on connecting new linguistic information with prior experiences. And the third is each individual reinterprets information based on their personal knowledge, a process called conceptual reformulation. For example, the word dog may evoke different images depending on a person's experiences with a dog. Comprehension questions immediately following a text suggest that learners should understand it right away. However, in reality, meaning making is a complex process. The key issue is determining when and why we need to closely approximate our understanding to what the writer originally intended rather than simply forming our own interpretation. Second is the language-based approach to L2 reading instruction. So this focuses on developing learners' automatic language processing ability to enhance their reading skills. It emphasizes vocabulary and grammar exercises as well as structured reading activities that integrate linguistic knowledge with reading comprehension. So the key features of the language-based approach is the pre-reading vocabulary activities. Before reading, learners are introduced to key vocabulary from the text to improve their comprehension. Second is the grammar-focused reading. Short texts are used primarily to teach grammar structures rather than for deep comprehension. Third is use of simplified text. In the 1950s to 60s, language learning relied on the belief that mastering grammar and vocabulary would naturally lead to fluent reading. Learners were given graded readers or the simplified text to develop language habits and improve their reading ability. Researchers suggest in 1960s that the text difficulty could be predicted based on word complexity and sentence length. This led to the development of simplified English texts which use shorter sentences and fewer difficult words to improve accessibility. In 1980s to the present, there is a criticism here that understanding linguistic meaning is not equal to understanding textual meaning. Simply knowing the grammar and vocabulary of a text does not guarantee comprehension of its deeper meaning. Second is that the reader's active role is ignored. This approach does not consider the importance of prior knowledge, metacognitive strategies, and inference skills in reading. For the support for the language-based approach, research on eye movement studies provides strong support for the language-based approach in reading. So these studies reveal that skilled readers do not rely heavily on contextual clues to pre-select word meanings before encountering them in a text. Instead, meaning is selected dynamically while the reader is processing language in real time. This challenges earlier claims that proficient readers anticipate word meanings using prior knowledge or surrounding context. Instead, reading comprehension primarily depends on linguistic competence, including automatic word recognition and grammatical processing. Moreover, eye movement studies reinforce the idea that general language ability and rapid word recognition are essential for fluent reading. When a reader possesses a strong vocabulary and a high level of linguistic proficiency, their eyes move smoothly across the text, allowing for automatic decoding and efficient comprehension. On the other hand, less proficient readers tend to make more frequent regressions and longer fixation times, which slows down the reading process. This highlights the importance of building a strong linguistic foundation as opposed to relying solely on contextual guessing strategies. Additional support comes from verbal protocol studies, where readers verbalize their thoughts while reading. These studies confirm that vocabulary knowledge is the primary factor in reading comprehension. Readers who have wide range of vocabulary are able to decode and understand text more efficiently, while those with limited vocabulary struggle to grasp meaning, even when provided with the context. For learners to read fluently, they must develop automatic word recognition alongside general language skills. This means that rather than overemphasizing strategies like guessing word meanings from context, language instruction should focus on enhancing vocabulary, grammar, and phonological awareness. In summary, eye movement studies and verbal protocol research both support the language-based approach by emphasizing the role of linguistic proficiency and automatic word recognition reading comprehension. Research in vocabulary studies highlights three key factors essential for fluent reading: fast and automatic word identification, extensive knowledge of the lexicon, and the ability to attribute appropriate meaning to words based on context and context. So first, fast and automatic word identification is crucial because fluent readers do not spend excessive time decoding individual words. Instead, they recognize words effortlessly, allowing their focus to remain on comprehension rather than on the mechanics of reading. This automaticity develops through repeated exposure to words in different contexts, reinforcing both their form and meaning. Second is the extensive knowledge of the lexicon plays a major role in reading fluency. A broad vocabulary allows readers to understand a variety of text without frequent interruptions. When a reader is familiar with most of the words in a text, they can process information more quickly and efficiently. Limited vocabulary, on the other hand, forces readers to rely on guessing strategies or repeated rereading, which slows down comprehension and disrupts fluency. And finally, fluent reading requires the ability to attribute the most appropriate meanings to lexical items based on their context and context. Since many words have multiple meanings, skilled readers must use surrounding words and sentence structures to determine the intended meaning. So, for example, the word bank could refer to a financial institution or the side of a river, and only the context will clarify which meaning is appropriate. This skill enables readers to grasp the overall message of a text rather than getting stuck on ambiguous words. Many course books follow the PPP approach by Tomlinson and Masohara 2013 for teaching grammar and vocabulary. Presentation is to introduce grammar vocabulary. Practice is to control, exercises to reinforce learning. And the third is production. This is the communicative activities that integrate reading and language use. The reasons why we learn to read in L1 may be attributed to obtaining non-linguistic outcomes. First is we read for getting information to suit our different purposes. Second is for gaining pleasure and stimuli, for attaining social advancement or etc. Third is L1 adults do not read a text so as to acquire extensive knowledge of hyponym or synonyms, to practice some syntactical structure such as reduced relative clauses, or to analyze the discourse structure of a text. Fourth is in L2, however, readings is often taught as a means of learning the language. Tomlinson's 2000 recommendation is to delay reading instruction at the early stages of L2 learning because learners lack sufficient language skills to read meaningfully. Second is that L1 children begin formal reading instruction with a well-developed oral vocabulary and intuitive grammar knowledge. Third is L2 learners, however, must develop their language skills while learning to read simultaneously, making reading comprehension more challenging. Preschoolers who grew up in L1 reading environments often have early exposure to relaxed proto-reading experiences, such as listening to bedtime stories. So these experiences help them to become familiar with vocabulary in a natural and engaging way. Most of the words in these stories are already known to them, and unfamiliar words can either be inferred from the pictures explained by a parent or simply ignored until they become relevant to the child's experiences. This type of exposure lays the foundation for later reading development by reinforcing word recognition and comprehension in a stress-free setting. In contrast, L2 reading instruction often begins at the same time as L2 language learning, meaning that learners are expected to read text before they have fully developed their language skills. Unlike L1 readers who gradually acquire reading skills through natural exposure, L2 learners may not receive direct reading instruction. Instead, there is an assumption that once a learner understands the language system, they should be able to read well. However, reading in L2 is often more challenging because learners must decode unfamiliar vocabulary syntax or structures while trying to comprehend the text. To support L2 learners, many course books include pre-reading vocabulary exercises. So these exercises are designed to help students access vocabulary automatically, which is essential for reading fluency. Explicit pre-teaching of vocabulary enables learners to recall prior language knowledge or acquire new words before encountering them in a text. So additionally, doing vocabulary work before reading improves comprehension by reducing the cognitive load, allowing learners to focus on meaning rather than struggling with unknown words. For L1 readers, sentence structure is usually not a major challenge unless it interacts with other difficulties such as vocabulary overload or a lack of background knowledge. If a text contains too many unfamiliar words, even a native speaker may struggle to make sense of it. Similarly, if a reader lacks prior knowledge about a topic, even well-structured sentences may be difficult to understand. So this highlights the importance of vocabulary familiarity and contextual understanding in successful reading. So overall, both L1 and L2 reading development rely heavily on the vocabulary knowledge, While L1 readers benefit from early exposure to familiar words in meaningful contexts, L2 learners often require explicit instruction and pre-reading vocabulary support to develop reading fluency and comprehension. When discussing skill or strategy based approaches in reading, it is important to understand the distinction between skill learning and knowledge learning. So, skill learning refers to the process where a learner acquires the sensor, motor, and cognitive abilities needed to use a language accurately, fluently, and appropriately. This means that the ability to read and understand text becomes more natural and automatic over time. Knowledge learning, on the other hand, involves the conscious learning of words and language rules in the target language, often through direct instruction and verbal explanation. A skill is an acquired ability that has been automatized, meaning it operates subconsciously without the need for constant conscious effort. For example, fluent readers do not need to think about every word they read. They recognize words automatically. A strategy, however, is a conscious procedure used to solve a problem or achieve goal. In reading, strategies might include scheming for the main idea or guessing the meaning of unknown words from context. So, teaching skills and strategies. When teaching reading, instructors often explicitly teach specific skills and strategies, followed by practice activities that help learners develop and internalize them. A successful reader is someone who recognizes different kind of text and understands which strategies are most effective for each type, and monitors and controls their strategy use based on the reading purpose. So, reading is not a simple one-step activity. Instead, it is a complex operation that involves multiple strategies, each of which has its own sub-skills and sub-strategies. For example, when encountering an unfamiliar word, or a skilled reader may identify word parts. It could be the prefixes, roots, or suffixes to determine meaning. Second is to use context clues from surrounding sentences. Third is to check their prior knowledge for similar words or concepts. By developing both automatic reading skills and conscious reading strategies, learners can become more effective and independent readers. When encountering unfamiliar words, learners can use various strategies, such as identifying parts of speech, recognizing if a word is a noun, verb, adjective, or etc. Helps determine its function in the sentence. Second is to analyzing morphological components. It is breaking down words into prefixes, roots, and suffixes to understand their meanings. So, for example, un plus happy equals unhappy. So there's a different meaning now. So third is using context clues, looking at surrounding words, phrases, and clauses to infer the meaning of an unknown word. For grammar-related strategies, it involves understanding discourse structures, how sentences and paragraphs are connected, and using techniques to resolve ambiguity or unclear meaning. So some grammar strategies include using prior knowledge to understand unclear sentence structures, recognizing relationships between sentences in a paragraph. Third is inferring meaning from context instead of relying on direct translations. So the goal of strategy-based learning is that conscious practice eventually leads to automatic skill use. For example, if someone consciously learns and practices tennis techniques, they will only become a skilled player if they continue to practice until these techniques become second nature. So around this time in the mid-1980s, The reading instruction shifted towards reader-centered approaches where readers were seen as active agents who direct their own learning. So readers must actively use their cognitive resources such as prior knowledge of how reading works and a variety of reading strategies including scanning for key information and making predictions. So readers need a range of skills and strategies to read effectively. These include decoding words, comprehending sentence structures, making inferences, and understanding text organization. Second is that different readers have different reading problems. So some may struggle with vocabulary while others may have difficulty understanding grammar or following the logical flow of a text. And the third for this principle is guided practice is necessary to help learners develop reading skills and strategies. So explicit teaching and structured exercises help students gain proficiency. The schema-based approach to reading focuses on how a reader's prior knowledge influences their ability to understand and interpret a text. This approach is rooted in schema theory, which suggests that people organize knowledge in mental frameworks or schemas and use these schemas to process and interpret new information. So, a theory about knowledge in the mind means schema theory suggests that knowledge is not stored randomly in the mind, but is instead structured and categorized in schemas. Mental frameworks that represent that we know about different concepts, situations, or experiences. For example, we have schemas for restaurants, birthdays, or travels based on our experiences. So when we encounter a new situation, we refer to this as existing schemas to help us understand. It hypothesizes how knowledge is organized in the mind and how it's used in the processing new information. So, when we read, our brain does not simply process words in isolation. Instead, it actively connects new information to what we already know. This means that reading comprehension depends not only on linguistic ability, knowing vocabulary and grammar, but also in our prior knowledge related to the topic. For example, if a reader encounters a text about a hiking trip, their understanding will be influenced by their existing knowledge of hiking. A person who has been on many hikes will easily visualize the setting, understand terms like trailhead or elevation gain, and predict possible challenges. However, someone unfamiliar with hiking may struggle to grasp the full meaning of the text. Comprehension happens when a new experiences understood in comparison with a stereotypical version of a similar experience held in memory. So according to schema theory, comprehension happens when a new experience is understood in relation to a previously stored schema. This means that when we encounter new information, we compare it to a stereotypical version of a similar situation or experiences stored in our memory. For example, when we read a story about wedding, we automatically expect certain elements: a ceremony, a bride and a groom, guests, and celebration. If the story mentioned a wedding without guests or a bride, it might seem unusual because it does not match our pre-existing schema of a wedding. The reading process cannot be explained without acknowledging the vital importance of knowledge system in reader's mind. So, the reading process cannot be fully understood without considering the reader's background knowledge. Simply recognizing words and sentences is not enough for deep comprehension. Readers must activate and apply their knowledge to interpret meaning, draw inferences, and connect ideas. So, for instance, if a text says, "She put on a black dress, and walk slowly to the front of the room. A reader with the right schema might infer that this is a funeral setting, even though the word funeral is never mentioned. Their prior knowledge about cultural costumes help them fill in the missing details. Pre-reading activities are essential in schema-based approaches because they help activate learners' prior knowledge, making it easier for them to understand new texts. These activities prepare students by connecting the new material with what they already know, improving comprehension and engagement. So, one effective way to activate prior knowledge is by asking learners to discuss their personal experiences related to the topic. This can be done in pairs or groups, allowing them to share ideas, recall memories, and make predictions about the lesson. So, for example, before reading a story about festival, students might discuss a festival they have attended, describing the events, food, and atmosphere. This discussion helped them create a mental framework for understanding a text. Another strategy is to present learners with statements, text, titles, or illustrations before they read. These elements act as clues, helping students anticipate the content and activate relevant knowledge. So, before reading, students should recall and review related information they have previously learned. This strengthens their ability to connect new ideas with existing knowledge. Another is comprehension occurs when a new experience is understood in relation to a stored version of a similar experiences. This means that when learners encounter a text, they do not process it word by word in isolation. Instead, they compare it to what they already know and try to fit it into their mental framework. For instance, if a student reads a story about a wedding ceremony in another culture, they might compare it to their own culture's wedding traditions, identifying similarities and differences. Another is some learning materials include a sequence of text or related topics to build students' background knowledge. This is known as achieving critical mass, providing enough exposure to a topic so that readers can develop a solid understanding. Problems with the schema-based approach. So first is the authentic texts are too complex to allow readers. So authentic texts often contain unfamiliar vocabulary, idioms, cultural references, and complex sentence structures, making it difficult for readers to quickly activate the right schema. Readers may struggle to select and apply appropriate background knowledge, leading to misinterpretation or incomplete comprehension. Second is that schema is a pre-packaged system of stereotypical knowledge, and such a fixed structure may not meet the demands exposed by the ever-changing context we find in authentic text. So this means that it is based on previous experiences and stereotypical expectations. However, real-world texts are constantly evolving, containing unexpected structures and meanings that may not fit into the fixed schema. This limitation can cause readers to misinterpret information if their existing schema does not align with the text. The third one is schema theories do not explain well how the mind creates, destroys, and reorganizes schemata, or how schemata is retrieved from the memory during comprehension. So, while schema theory describes how prior knowledge influences comprehension, it does not clearly explain how the mind forms new schema, discards outdated ones, or retrieves relevant ones when reading. This makes it difficult to apply schema theory systematically in teaching reading comprehension. Fourth is an alternative approach for teaching reading. Instead of relying solely on schema activation, teachers can integrate a balanced approach that combines explicit vocabulary and background knowledge instruction to help students build and adjust their schema. Another is cognitive strategies like predicting, questioning, summarizing, and inferencing to improve comprehension. And the third is exposure to diverse texts with guided practice to help learners adapt their schemas to new contexts rather than relying only on a prior knowledge. So this combined approach ensures that students develop flexible thinking and can understand text beyond their existing schema. The schema-based approaches and principles, the first one is engaging effects should be the prime concern of reading materials. So reading materials should evoke emotions, interest, and motivation because it affects plays a crucial role in deep processing and retention. Neuroscience suggests that emotions significantly impact cognition, learning, and memory. When a text resonates emotionally with a reader, it creates a lasting impression, making it easier to remember. Even a proficient reader may interpret the same text differently depending on their emotional state, interest, and significance given the text. This highlights the importance of choosing texts that connect with learners' emotions to enhance engagement and comprehension. Second is that listening to a text before reading, it helps decrease linguistic demands. So before reading, listening to the text can reduce the cognitive load by allowing learners to focus on meaning rather than struggling with decoding words. So according to Talal 2003, the brain processes sounds first, then syllables, then words, and finally written text. Many L2 learners face difficulties in decoding visual text, identifying syntax and meaning, extracting information, and integrating it with prior knowledge. So to help learners, teacher can reduce cognitive overload by separating sound processing from script reading. Another is chunk the text into a smaller, meaningful sections to make comprehension easier. And the third is use prosodic features, for example, emphasis or tone, to highlight important meanings. And the last one is read with suitable emotion, for example, humor or anger, to create engagement. So these strategies enhance comprehension by making the reading process more accessible and engaging. Third one is reading comprehension means creating multi-dimensional mental representation. So this is when readers understand a text, they don't just process words, they create mental images that includes visuals, sounds, and even emotions. This process is unique to each reader and depends on their experiences, mood, and knowledge. Effective reading materials encourage learners to form this dynamic and mental representation, making comprehension more vivid and meaningful. Last one is the materials should help learners experience the text before focusing on language. So rather than immediately analyzing grammar and vocabulary, learners should first experience the text in a way that activates different areas of their brain. For example, their sensory, their motor, emotional, cognitive. This allows them to engage deeply by personally relating to the text, process information gradually, making better connections, use their first language to reflect before developing inner speech in their second language, and then experiment with understanding before speaking or writing in the second language. So by prioritizing experience over analysis, learners develop stronger comprehension skills, leading to deeper language acquisition and greater engagement with text. The schema-based approach in reading emphasizes the role of prior knowledge in understanding text. It suggests that readers use their existing mental frameworks or schemas to interpret new information. So these schemas are developed through past experiences, culture, and learning and are so crucial in making sense of the text. So according to Noonan, 1999, designing an effective reading course using schema theory involves 5 essential steps. First one is deciding the overall purpose of reading course. Before planning a reading course, educators must define its main objectives within a wider educational framework. This could include improving academic reading, professional reading, or general comprehension skills based on learners' needs. Second is that identifying the types of text and tasks. The course should include a variety of texts such as narratives, academic articles, instructions, and relevant reading tasks. That includes skimming for main ideas, scanning for details, making inferences to help students engage effectively with different materials. Third is that identifying the linguistic elements to be covered. So, effective reading instruction includes teaching grammatical structures, discourse features, and vocabulary necessary for understanding text. For example, if learners need to read and academic papers, they should be introduced to complex sentence structures, signal words, and discipline-specific terminology. Fourth is integrating text and task into class-based units. So this means that the course should organize reading materials and exercise into structured lesson. Each unit should build upon previous knowledge and provide progressive challenges to enhance comprehension. Activities like discussions, writing exercises, and speaking tasks can reinforce learning. And last one is linking reading to other language skills. So this means that reading does not exist in isolation. It is closely connected to listening, speaking, and writing. So a well-designed reading course should integrate reading with speaking activities, listening exercises, and writing tasks to develop overall language proficiency. In education, it focuses on how learners use their existing knowledge structures to understand new information. So this approach is particularly relevant in higher education, where students are expected to engage in self-directed learning and apply prior knowledge to academic tasks. So by increasing need for out-of-class learning materials as educators evolve, there is a growing need to develop materials that support academic language and learning beyond the classroom. So several global trends have contributed to this shift. The first one is massification of education. So with increasing student population, in-class activities are becoming less feasible for deep engagement. Therefore, self-paced learning materials are essential. Second is that online learning. The rise of digital education requires students to complete more independent tasks, relying on pre-existing knowledge structures to guide comprehension. And the third is growing numbers of EAL, English as an additional language learners, as more students worldwide study in English. English for academic purposes, or EAP, is becoming a critical part of learning across different fields. These students must activate schemas related to both language and subject matter to succeed. Balancing self-directed learning and institutional support. While students are increasingly expected to take responsibility for their learning, universities must still provide structured support to guide their progress. This includes scaffolding learning experiences by providing background knowledge before introducing complex text. Second is encouraging schema activation through pre-reading discussion, visual aids, and interactive tasks. And the third is designing material that bridge gaps in student schemas, making academic content more accessible. Now we are here in developing writing skills. Writing skills requires carefully designed teaching methodologies and well-structured materials that serve as a bridge between teaching and learning. So these materials play a crucial role in making educational objectives, syllabi, and student needs more tangible and accessible. Effective writing instructions involves not only guiding students through the technical aspects of writing such as grammar, coherence, and structure, but also fostering their ability to express ideas clearly and purposely by integrating structured lessons, interactive activities, and real-world writing tasks. Educators can create an environment where students progressively enhance their writing proficiency. So, well-developed materials provide essential support, ensuring that students engage with writing in a meaningful way while aligning with the overall learning goals in the curriculum. The roles of materials in writing instruction. So the first one is model. Writing materials serve as models by presenting high-quality examples of specific genres, highlighting their key lexical, grammatical, and rhetorical features. These examples should be authentic and relevant to help learners understand the structure and style of effective writing. Second one is language scaffolding. So materials provide structured support through discussions, guided writing, and exercises that help learners analyze and manipulate language. Grammar should be taught inductively from a broader text context to specific rules. So treating it as a tool for constructing meaningful text rather than just isolated rules. Reference. Writing materials act as a resource for learners by offering explanations and examples of important grammatical structures, vocabulary, and stylistic conventions. So this allows students to review and apply language rules effectively in their writing. Stimulus. Materials encourage learners to engage with language actively, prompting critical thinking and creativity. Well-designed prompts, images, or thought-provoking questions inspire students to generate ideas and apply their language skills in meaningful writing tasks. When choosing writing materials for students, it is important to consider their needs, proficiency levels, and types of text they will encounter in real-life situations. So the first one is we should ask. So the question here is, what is the proficiency of my students? So understanding students' language level helps in selecting materials that are appropriate and not too challenging or too simple. Second is, why are they learning English? So we should identify their purpose. Is it for academic, professional, or personal? So this would ensure that the materials align with their goals. The third is, what text will they need to provide in their social, academic, and workplace context? So this ensures that students practice writing skills that are directly useful in their daily lives and future careers. Letter B is determine the text types students need to be familiar with. So the first one is email, formal and informal communication commonly used in both academic and professional settings. Second is reports, structured and detailed documents used in academic research or workplace settings. Third is narrative, storytelling, or personal reflections often found in creative writing or literature. And the fourth is persuasive writing, argumentative pieces that aim to convince the reader, used in essays, advertisement, or opinion writing. So by considering these factors, teachers can select effective writing materials that enhance students' skills and prepare them for the real-world writing task. Textbook as writing material. So teaching writing is a complex process that cannot be fully addressed by a single textbook. Since writing instructions varies based on students' needs, teachers must carefully evaluate the relevance of textbook before using them in the classroom. A textbook should be locally relevant, meaning it must align with the students' proficiency levels, learning objectives, and curriculum requirements. It should also be adaptable to different teaching styles and classroom settings. However, no textbook is perfect, so teachers may need to adapt materials using 5 key methods, which is adding, deleting, modifying, simplifying, and reordering. So, adding means including extra exercises, examples, or activities to supplement the textbook. Second is deleting, removing unnecessary or less relevant content that may not suit the learners. Third is modifying, changing instructions, tasks, or examples to better fit students' context. And the fourth one is simplifying, adjusting the complexity of language or task to match the student's proficiency. And fifth is reordering, means that changing the sequence of lessons or exercise to improve learning flow. The internet plays a crucial role in writing instruction by providing students with valuable resources and opportunities for collaboration. One of its key advantages is access to authentic materials, allowing learners to engage with real-world text that enhances their writing skills. It also encourages collaborative research and writing projects, enabling students to work together on assignments, share ideas, and redefine the writing through peer feedback. Additionally, the internet offers access to dictionaries, corpora, and references aids, which help students expand their vocabulary, improve their grammar, and understand different writing styles. So finally, it provides opportunities for students' written communication and publication, allowing learners to share their work with a broader audience through blogs, forums, and digital platforms. These advantages make the internet a powerful tool for developing writing proficiency in academic and professional settings. So what you can see here are the resources to four representative resources for teachers and students. So you can just click them and then you would know what they are. So developing effective writing materials can be approached in 2 key ways: participating in materials writing teams and relying on existing materials. Working in a team allows educators to collaborate, share expertise, and create well-structured resources that address students' specific needs. So this process ensures that materials are comprehensive, engaging, and aligned with learning objectives. On the other hand, learning heavily on existing materials such as textbook, online resources, and reference guides saves time and provides a solid foundation in instruction. Teachers can adapt these resources by modifying, simplifying, and or supplementing them to better suit their students' proficiency levels and writing goals. Both approaches contribute to the development of effective, relevant, and accessible writing materials. When designing writing materials, Hutchison and Waters in 1987 proposed a model that includes 4 key components: input, content focus, language focus, and task. So input refers to the text or material that serve as a stimulus for writing. It provides context, purpose, and opportunities to activate prior knowledge. This could be an article, a case study, or a prompt that sparks discussion and critical thinking. Second is the content. Content focus. This ensures that the writing materials are meaningful by incorporating relevant topics, situations, and information. So this helps students engage in purposeful communication rather than just completing isolated exercises. Third is language focus, and this allows learners to analyze text and integrate new linguistic knowledge. So this includes grammar, vocabulary, and discourse features that support effective writing. Fourth is the task. It is the final stage where students apply what they have learned in communicative writing activity. So this could be an essay, a report, or another structured writing assignment that consolidates their learning. Using the input text in writing instruction. So the input text plays a crucial role in developing students' writing skills by serving as a model for genre, features, and context. It provides a structured example of how specific text types are organized, highlighting key linguistic, grammatical, and rhetorical elements that students can emulate in their writing. Additionally, the input text helps build students' content schemata or background knowledge, which is essential for effective writing. By engaging in extensive reading and discussion, students can deepen their comprehension, reflect on ideas, and actively engage with the text. So this process enhances their ability to generate well-informed, structured, and contextually appropriate writing. So that is all. Thank you so much for listening.
A good day, everyone. I am Princess Felicie Noah, and today I'll be tackling developing speaking skills. And it's under Chapter 5, which is developing specific types of materials. So, a brief introduction. Speaking is a very fundamental skill in language learning, essential for effective communication. Developing speaking skills isn't just about fluency and accuracy, it's also the confidence, the pronunciation, and the ability to engage in meaningful conversations. Now, in this chapter, we're going to explore first the importance of speaking skills and the need for relevant materials, trends in materials for speaking skills, and lastly, utilizing verbal sources from real life. So sit back, take down notes, and listen carefully. Okay, first off is importance of speaking. Why is speaking important? So first of all, it's about communication. Speaking is the primary means of interaction in daily life. Of course, speaking is indeed one of the most fundamental ways of humans to interact with each other, whether it's in personal conversations, work settings, or social gatherings. Verbal communication allows people to express ideas, share feelings, and build relationships. It's like it plays a key role in conveying out information, our thoughts and ideas, influencing decisions, and connecting with others. So, do you think verbal communication is much more an effective communication rather than non-verbal communication? So, take note of that. Next is confidence building. Of course, developing speaking skills helps learners develop or boost their confidence whenever they express themselves. So, building speaking skills is a very powerful way to boost self-confidence. So, when learners practice speaking, whether in front of others or even to themselves, facing the mirror, they gradually became more comfortable with expressing their thoughts and ideas clearly. So this confidence isn't just about speaking fluently, it's also about being able to handle communications situations effectively, whether in casual conversations or formal presentations. So as learners see themselves improving and gaining more control over their speech, how they act in front, and how they control their arms like that, it can create a positive feedback loop that enhances both their communication skills and self-esteem. So I really think it's great when students develop this type of skill. As you can see, the next one is academic and professional success. So proficiency in speaking is crucial for academic presentations, job interviews, and workplace interaction. So proficiency in speaking is a key component for success in both academia and professional settings. So in academically, clear and confident communication is essential for giving presentations, engaging in discussions, and conveying research findings. So the ability to present complex ideas simply and persuasively can make a big difference in how others perceive your work, right? While in the professional setting, strong speaking skills are equally important, especially in job interviews where your ability to articulate your experiences, skills, and ideas can directly influence your chances of getting hired, right? Once on the job, effective communication plays a huge role in teamwork, leading projects, and networking. So, people who can speak well or fluently, accurately, and clearly, confidently tend to get their ideas heard, which often opens doors to opportunities and a career advancement. Lastly, as you can see, it's social and cultural integration. Okay, so effective speaking skills enable individuals to engage in discussions, share ideas, and connect with different cultures. So, effective speaking skills are essential for social and cultural integration because they allow us to navigate through different social environments, building connections, and understand diverse perspectives. When people can communicate clearly and confidently to the people around them, they more likely engage in meaningful conversations, share ideas, and contribute to discussions, whether in a new community, at work, or while traveling. In multicultural settings, speaking skills can bridge that gap. It can foster mutual understanding and create a sense of belonging. They help people move beyond that language barrier, engage with different connections, and build relationships that might be challenging due to cultural differences, right? Because when we're on different stances or like different languages, it's really hard to understand each other. So when you try to clearly um, convey your thoughts, verbally or non-verbally, it can really make a big difference. So the ability to speak openly, it also encourages collaboration and learning from others, which can lead to a more inclusive and enriched movements. Okay, so we're moving on to the next slide, which explains the concept of speaking skills based on Bygate in 1987. So it categorizes speaking skills into two main aspects. The first one is motor receptive skills. When we say motor receptive skills, this involves mastering the sounds and structures of a language. This aspect focuses on the ability to produce sounds, words, and grammatical structures correctly, regardless of the context. So it is more about the physical and the cognitive ability to articulate language accurately. So the next one of the two main aspects is interaction skills. This refers to the ability of our ability to make appropriate decisions on what we say and how we say it in a given communicative situation. So this skill is essential for effective communication because it helps us convey the intended meaning, express emotions, and maintain social relationships. Of course, when we have the interaction skills, it's much more easier to interact with others, conveying our thoughts, our emotions, and have that strong relationship with others. So these two, the motor receptive skills and the interaction skills, highlights the importance of both linguistic accuracy and social appropriateness in spoken communication. So this perspective supports the need for relevant materials that develop both aspects, ensuring that learners can communicate effectively in real life situations. This perception can also be further understood by observing these two sets of skills must not represent clear-cut distinctions or like two-stage operations, but from the start structure must be taught in relation to use. So arguably, speaking skills are best developed when learners learn to eventually take control of their own performance, because when learners have ownership they know how to stop, they know how to express themselves, they know how to take accountability and take control of their own decisions and performance, and from an insider's perspective rather than being constantly dictated by external manipulation. Second language materials. So second language materials, as viewed by Tomlinson in 2010, should be created not only by writers but also by teachers and students in a creative process which stretches to the real classroom. So Tomlinson suggested that second language materials should not only be created by professional writers but also by teachers and learners. So this means that materials should be flexible, interactive, and relevant to real classroom needs. So especially when the professional writer doesn't have first-hand experience inside the classroom between the teacher and the student, and he is just commissioned to do the writing, so it's really hard to get that impression on the students and the teachers, right? So that's why to make the material, the teachers and the students should contribute, so that the materials will become more engaging, more practical, and suited to their learning environment. So this approach encourages creativity, active participation, and continuous improvement in language learning. Trends in materials for speaking skills. So materials published over the past 5 decades have been clear indicators of how the key principles of communicative approaches are incorporated into speaking activities. So in the 1960s, it focuses on linguistic systems. So in the mid-1960s, language learning was primarily based on mastering the linguistic systems. It emphasizes the grammar, structure, phonetics. So this period was dominated by methods like the audiolingual method, ALM, and situational language teaching, SLT, which prioritized repetitions, drills, and habit formation. Learners were expected to internalize these patterns through mechanical exercises rather than engaging in meaningful conversations. Okay, so now we're on to the 1970s. So the 1970s is a shift towards a communicative approach. The 1960s where it talks about the mechanical exercises. In the 1970s, it talks or a shift towards communicative approach, which emphasizes meaningful activities instead of just the mechanical ones or the mechanical drills. So this change is called the communicative revolution, which encouraged the students to have a real-life communication and interactive learning rather than just memorizing language rules. Going along to 1980s, educators greatly adjusted to the communicative approach to balance both language use and linguistic knowledge, while in the 1970s emphasized the real-life communications, and some experts felt troubled, like focusing too much on use neglected essential grammar and structure. So to address this, to balance this, the 1980s approach integrated communicative activities that with explicit teaching of linguistic rules, ensuring learners both fluency and accuracy in the language. So examples of the reaction against the strong version of the communicative approach where the criticism of the new methodology was attempting to replace the structural approach. Okay, so we're on to the early 1990s. Language teaching in this time evolved with the introduction of the multidimensional syllabus. So it sought out to integrate various aspects of language learning rather than just focusing on just one. So this approach recognized the effective language of learning requires a combination of a functional communication, linguistic accuracy, and real-world application. So the key features in this multidimensional syllabus has the functions and the notions. So it focuses on what the learners do with the language, such as making requests, giving opinions, or expressing their emotions. They also have the roles and skills that address the different roles that the learners might take on in conversations and the skills that they need, such as negotiation or persuasion. Lastly is the themes and situations. It encourages the students learning through meaningful contexts such as travel, business, or social interaction. Okay, so why is this even important? It's because before the 1990s, language syllabi often focused on either the grammar and structure, the traditional approach, or the real-world communication, which is the communicative approach, but not both. So the multidimensional syllabus aimed to bridge that gap by ensuring that learners develop both communicative competence and linguistic accuracy. So McDonough and Shaw emphasized that this syllabus was designed to balance communicative goals with structured practices, ensuring that learners could use both the language fluently while also understanding its formal rules. So this shift opened up to new possibilities or more holistic and effective language teaching, leading to a modern approach that integrates multiple teaching dimensions. Lastly, we have the 2000s. So in this time, language teaching fully embraced the communicative approach, which is the modern one, emphasizing meaningful activities over the mechanical drills. So in our time, it's called the student-centered learning. Okay, so instead of just rote memorization and repetitive exercises, learners are engaged in real-life communication tasks, such as role plays, problem-solving activities, and discussions. This shift aimed to make language learning more interactive, more engaging, and just practical, ensuring that learners could use the language effectively in authentic situations. So we're on to the last part of my topic, and it's utilizing verbal sources from real life. So oral topics should not be so familiar to learners that there is nothing for the learners to think about, and should not be so new in information value that learners have little knowledge to connect. So this statement emphasizes the importance of balance when choosing oral topics for language learning. So if a topic is too familiar to students, they would not feel challenged or engaged at all, as there is nothing new to explore. On the other hand, if a topic is too unfamiliar, students may struggle to participate because they lack prior knowledge to build on. That is why before we start our discussions, we have this so-called pre-assessments or pre-tests, just to teach or to assess the students' prior knowledge on the topic. And I do believe that when the topic is too familiar, it tends to get more boring or it lacks challenge. But still, it's an advantage because we can share our ideas on the topic, right? So, to be effective, verbal sources from real life, it should be relatable yet thought-provoking, encouraging learners to think critically, express opinions, and apply existing knowledge while also encountering new ideas. So this approach keeps conversation engaging, meaningful, and educational. Like for example, incorporating real-world conversations like media interviews or overheard discussions can provide learners with authentic yet slightly challenging topics. These sources ensures that the topics are engaging and relevant while still offering something new to explore, diba? A little spice to that. There's also encouraging students to note on real-life dialogues from various sources, like for example, public conversations, media, or interactions with native speakers allows them to engage with relevant yet slightly challenging language use. So I think we have this type of project, and I hope everyone would get to that. So that's the last of my topic, and I hope everyone had understood or got something from it and took down notes. So thank you everyone, that's all.
A pleasant day to each and everyone. I am Christian Ju, and today I'll be discussing about developing listening skills. First, let's have an introduction. So listening is often overlooked, but it is one of the most important communication skills. A good listener can improve relationships, resolve conflicts, and help you understand others better, fostering stronger connections and more effective interactions. Now, let's talk about the difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is the physical perception of sounds by the ears. So, hearing is a purely passive physiological process. It is the physical sensation of sound waves entering your ears and being transmitted to your brain. And you don't have to do anything for hearing to occur, it simply happens. So think of it as the reception of sounds. So hearing is involuntary. So sounds reach your ears whether you want them or not. And now, let's talk about listening. So listening is an active process of receiving, interpreting, and reacting to messages from speakers. So listening involves receiving, right? So receiving is taking in the auditory information or the sounds, and this is the overlap with hearing. So why is listening important? First, it improves relationships. An effective listening fosters empathy and understanding, which strengthens connections with others. Second, it improves our knowledge. By actively listening, we gain new information and perspectives and also expanding our knowledge base. Third, it improves our understanding. Deep listening enables us to grasp the nuances and complexities of what is being communicated and leading to a more comprehensive understanding. Next is it prevents problems from escalating. So why? Addressing concerns and resolving issues effectively requires attentive listening to identify and address underlying problems before they worsen. Next is, it saves time and energy. Misunderstandings and miscommunications often lead to wasted time and effort. Effective listening minimizes these issues and leading to a greater efficiency. Last, it leads to better results. When people feel heard or understood, they are more likely to collaborate effectively and achieve desired outcomes. And now, let's talk about the process of listening. So the first one is hearing. Hearing is a purely physiological aspect of listening. It is the passive reception of sound waves by our ears. It doesn't involve understanding or interpreting the meaning. It's simply the detection of auditory stimuli or sounds. So think of it as the raw input data. So the second process of listening is focusing. So this is where active listening begins. Focusing involves directing your attention to the specific sound or message
you want to understand. It requires filtering out distractions and concentrating on the speaker's voice and words. So this stage is crucial because without focus, the subsequent steps are compromised.
The third one is interpreting. So this stage involves making sense of the message that you have heard. It includes decoding the words, understanding the speaker's tone and intent, and considering the context of the communication. So it's about assigning meaning to the sounds that you have heard and focus on. So these often involves drawing on your prior knowledge and experiences. The fourth one is analyzing and evaluating. So this is a more critical level of listening. So it involves going beyond simply understanding the message to assessing its validity, logic, and implications. So it requires you to think critically about the information presented, considering its source, biases, and potential inaccuracies. So this stage involves forming your own judgment about the message value and relevance. And the last one is responding. So responding is the final stage where you demonstrate your understanding and engagement with the message. Responding can take many forms, from providing verbal feedback, example, asking or clarifying questions, summarizing what you heard, to taking action based on the information received. Effective responding shows the speaker that you were actively listening and understood their message. But class, we also need to consider that there are problems or hindrance to listening. So let's talk about the different types of barriers in listening. First, we have the physical barrier. There are three different types of physical barriers. First one is environmental barriers. These are physical conditions in the listening environment that impede the transmission or reception of sound. So, examples. So this is very common. So loud noises, construction works, traffic, a crowded room, or even a noisy air conditioner can make it difficult to hear the speaker clearly. Another example, poor acoustics. So a room with hard surfaces that reflect sound, like a large or empty hole, can create echoes and reverberations, making speech difficult to understand. Conversely, a room that absorbs too much sound, like one heavily carpeted and furnished, can make the speaker sound muffled. Another example of an environmental barrier is the distance from the speaker. Being too far away from the speaker makes it harder to hear, especially if the speaker's voice is soft or the environment is noisy. And the last example is physical obstructions. Walls, furniture, or other objects that can block the sound waves, reducing the clarity of the message. The second type of physical barrier is the personal barrier. So when a listener is preoccupied with their own problems, they are deeply concerned with their own issues, worries, or anxieties, they are less likely to pay attention to the speaker. So when their thoughts are elsewhere, this hinders their ability to focus on the conversation. So here are some examples of personal barrier. First, thinking about own response without hearing the speaker. So this refers to the tendency to formulate a response while the speaker is still talking. So the listener is not truly listening to understand the speaker's message, but is instead preparing their own counter-argument or rebuttal. So they miss the crucial information because they are not fully present in the moment. Second example, looking for every opportunity to interrupt. So this indicates a lack of respect for the speaker and a desire to dominate the conversation. So the listener is not interested in hearing the speaker's complete message, but they are eager to insert their own opinions or perspectives. And the last example of personal problems or barriers rather is pseudo listening. So this is a form of inattentive listening where the listener appears to be paying attention, like making eye-to-eye contact or nodding, but is not actually processing the information being conveyed. They may less likely or passively hearing the words but not engaging with the meaning. So it's like a facade of listening. The third type of physical barrier is the linguistic barrier. So this barrier is related to the language used in the communication. While not purely physical, they also affect the listener's ability to process the auditory information. So here are some examples of linguistic barrier. First, unclear speech. So when a speaker with a heavy accent rather, a speech impediment or who mumbles can make it difficult for the listeners to understand the message. The next example is unfamiliar vocabulary. So this is quite common. So if the speaker uses words or phrases the listener doesn't understand, so the comprehension will be impaired. Here's another common example, rapid speech. So if the speaker speaks too quickly, the listeners may not be able to keep up. So here's the last example, technical jargon. If the speaker uses specialized vocabulary that the listener is unfamiliar with, example like medical jargon in a conversation with a patient, so the comprehension will be difficult. Now, let's move on to another type of barrier, which is called physiological barriers. So, physiological barriers are barriers related to the listener's physical state or health. So they directly impact the listener's ability to process auditory information. So here are some examples of physiological barriers. First is health issues. Any illness or medical condition that affects hearing, concentration, or overall well-being can act as a barrier. So these could range from a simple headache to more serious conditions. Another example is tardiness. Fatigue significantly reduces concentration and the ability to focus on auditory information. A tired listener is more likely to miss details or misunderstand the message. Next example is discomfort. So physical discomfort such as being too hot, too cold, or in pain can distract the listener and make it difficult to concentrate on the speaker. Next one is poor eyesight. So while seemingly unrelated to hearing, poor eyesight can indirectly affect listening by reducing the listener's ability to read lips or follow visual cues that accompany speech, especially in situations where the auditory signal is weak. And the last type of barrier is what we call psychological barriers. So these barriers stemming from the listener's mental state or emotional disposition. They affect the listener's ability to focus and interpret the message objectively. So here are some examples of psychological barriers. First one is anger. So this is quite common, especially nowadays. So if a listener is angry, they may be less likely to listen objectively and more likely to focus on their own emotions rather than the speaker's message. So they may misinterpret message or react defensively. The next one is your own anxiety. So when a listener experiencing anxiety, they may find it difficult to concentrate and may miss important information due to the preoccupation with their own worries. Next example of psychological barrier, frustration. So frustration is the inability to put across ideas. So if a listener is frustrated, particularly if they feel unable to express their own ideas, they may not listen attentively to the speaker. So their focus will be on their own frustration. The next example, status difference. So a significant difference in social status between the listener and the speaker can also create a barrier. So one good example for this is in a school setting. So imagine yourself as a student talking to a higher personnel like a president or a dean from your college. So you may find it difficult to converse with them because you most likely feel pressured. So that's one good example of status difference. So the listener may be less receptive to the message due to the preconceived notions and also biases. The last example for psychological barriers is prejudice. pre-existing biases or prejudices can significantly distort the listener's interpretation of the speaker's message. The listener may hear only what confirms their existing beliefs and ignore contradictory information. So class, we already have discussed about what is listening and what are the different types of barriers when it comes to listening. Now, let's talk about what are some rules for an effective or good listening. First, stop talking. Before you can effectively listen to someone else, you must stop talking to yourself. So this means actively silencing your own internal monologue and focusing your attention onto the speaker. So this shows respect when someone is talking to you. The next one is stop thinking. So this doesn't literally mean that you should completely shut down your brain, but rather stop formulating your response or rehearsing what you will say next. So just focus on understanding the speaker's message before formulating your own reply. So prematurely formulating your response prevents you from fully grasping the speaker's message. Another rule is remove distractions. So when you are listening to someone who is speaking, you should eliminate anything that could divert your attention from the speaker. So these includes turning off your mobile phones or finding a quiet place and minimizing visual distractions. So a focused mind is a better listener. Another one, do not let your mind wander. So as a listener, you should maintain your concentration on the speaker and the message that is being conveyed. Mind wandering prevents you from fully understanding and retaining the information. The next one is, do not prejudge. Approach the conversation with an open mind, avoiding assumptions or biases about the speaker or their message. Prejudgments can lead to misinterpretations and hinder effective communication. Another rule that is significant to listening is be patient. So, as a listener, we should give the speaker time to express their thoughts fully without interrupting. So, patience allows for a more complete understanding of the message. And this also shows your respect to the person who is talking to you or the speaker. Another rule is empathize with the speaker. So as a listener, you should try to understand the speaker's perspective and feelings. So empathy fosters connection and it also improves communication. And the last rule for an effective listening is taking notes. Taking notes help you retain information and allows you to refer back to the key points later for discussions. So this usually occurs particularly in formal settings like lectures or meetings. So class, I guess that's all for today's discussion. So thank you for listening, and I hope you have learned something about the discussion. Goodbye and see you next time.
A pleasant day, Ma'am Cordy Villa. I am Chandra ErichElyurin, and I'm the last reporter for Chapter 5, and I am tasked to report developing viewing skills as well as developing cultural awareness. Now, to start, let's first start with developing viewing skills. Let's define first or describe what viewing skills is. Now, as you can see in your screen, viewing skills refer to the ability to interpret, analyze, evaluate, and respond to visual information effectively. This means that viewing skills is also a process of comprehending visual media. This can be in a form of television, videos, films, and many more. And we are going to talk about the materials later. In addition, viewing requires students to construct meaning by interpreting the parts that are related to the visual message and to understand not only what the imagery is conveying, but also for learners to identify as to how the text works. Alright, now let's proceed to the two types of viewers. We have two types of viewers, which are passive and active viewer. Now let's define first what passive viewer is. A passive viewer is a type of audience or a viewer that accepts a message without question, and by doing so would be directly affected by it. On the other hand, active viewer is more about analyzing, appreciating, and evaluating text. Viewing is also not a passive action, but an active action if it is seen with purpose. Alright, now let's proceed to the processes of viewing. We have three processes of viewing, which are pre-viewing, during viewing, as well as after viewing. Now let's start first with the pre-viewing. From the word itself or from the suffix itself, pre, it means that before viewing. In this process, the students are anticipating a message, predicting, speculating, asking questions, and setting a purpose for viewing. Now, let's proceed to during viewing. This is where students respond by reflecting, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. And lastly, we are down to the last part of processes of writing. We have after viewing. This is where we interpret and summarize, pause and review, and as well as analyze and evaluate the text. Next, let's proceed to the purpose of viewing skills and its importance. We have first the enhancing comprehension. It is very important to take note that in developing viewing skills, we're also enhancing our comprehension. Why so? Visuals can simplify complex concepts, making them more accessible and easier to understand. Now, incorporating images such as graphs, diagrams, and videos into learning materials in grasping intricate ideas and retaining information more effectively. This kind of approach caters to diverse learning styles, ensuring a more inclusive educational experience. Alright, let's proceed to improving critical thinking. Now, when we say improving critical thinking, it means that as engaging with visual media, it encourages learners to analyze and interpret information beyond textual content. Alright, this process fosters critical thinking by prompting individuals to assess the credibility, context, and underlying messages of visual content. Now, in developing such skills, such viewing skills, it is very vital in an era, this current era, where visual information is abundant and not always reliable. Alright, now let's proceed to the third purpose and importance of viewing skills, which is developing digital literacy. Okay, proficiency in viewing skills contributes to digital literacy, enabling individuals to navigate and interpret the vast array of visual content encountered online. Now, this competence, which is viewing skills, is essential for discerning credible resources, understanding digital media's nuances, and engaging responsibly in the digital landscape. Alright, and lastly, we have enhancing communication skills. Now, in enhancing communication skills, we are also understanding visual elements, which enhances one's ability to communicate effectively. Now, by interpreting and utilizing visuals appropriately, individuals can convey messages more powerfully and persuasively. Now, this skill, or the viewing skill, is particularly valuable in professional and academic settings where visual presentations often complement verbal and written communication. Alright, now incorporating viewing skills into the educational curricula not only enriches learning experiences but also equips individuals with the necessary tools to navigate and interpret the visual aspects of contemporary communication. That is why it is very important to develop such skills, such as viewing skills, in order for the students to navigate or to go with how learning operates nowadays. Now, let's proceed to the principles and guidelines of developing viewing skills. First, we have understand and interprets. Now, in this part, students comprehend and interpret visual images, messages, and meanings, such as in a visual presentation. When we say understands and interprets, this means that we teachers or yes, we teachers should encourage learners to actively engage with visual content by making connections. Now, as well as predicting outcomes and summarizing information. We are not to copy everything we see in an internet or somewhere else. Now, this process enhances their ability to grasp the intended message conveyed through visuals, through understanding and interpreting what they are seeing or what they saw. Alright, now let's proceed to analysis and critics. When we say analysis and critics, or should we say analysis and critic, now this is where we guide learners, teachers guide learners to assess visual elements such as composition, color, and symbolism, fostering an understanding of how these concepts, of how these components influence perception and convey messages. In this part, students analyze and critique the significance of visual images, messages, and meaning, and not only focusing on the visual elements in that certain material. Alright, let's proceed to the guidelines for developing viewing skills. First, we have identify the learning objectives. In identifying the learning objectives, we are to determine what specific viewing skills learners should acquire, of course, such as analyzing visual elements, understanding multimedia messages, or evaluating visual credibility. Before we develop a specific material for developing viewing skills, we are to first identify the learning objectives in order for our material to be in accordance with the students' needs. Alright, now let's proceed to number 2, which is focus on key concepts. When we say focus on key concepts, it means that we are to teach learners to interpret and make meaning from visual information, understanding how visuals can influence perception and convey complex ideas. It is very important to take note that focusing on key concepts is very important, and not just on focusing just the shallow concepts of developing specific materials for developing viewing skills. Okay, let's proceed to number 3, which is use a variety of materials. When we say use a variety of materials, this is where we incorporate different types of visual media, including images, videos, infographics, and multimedia text to expose learners to a broad spectrum of visual experiences. In this way, we are not only giving the students the chance to learn, but also to enjoy learning. Alright, now let's proceed to number 4, which is provide opportunities for practice. When we say provide opportunities for practice, this is where we encourage learners to apply viewing strategies through activities like analyzing advertisements, critiquing films, or interpreting data visualizations, fostering hands-on experience. We are not to, in a classroom, we are not to teach our students that there is someone who is a monopoly of knowledge, because in a classroom setting there is no monopoly of knowledge. Therefore, we are to give our students the opportunity to practice what they are learning or what they have learned. Now let's proceed to number 5, which is use real world examples. This means that we are to utilize visuals from current events, social media, and popular culture to make learning relevant and demonstrate the practical application of viewing skills. This part is very practical. This part is very practical in nature, using real world examples. When we say real world examples in teaching our students, they are to be interested because they can relate to that certain example. All right, now let's proceed to number 6, which is provide feedback and assessment. In providing feedback and assessment, we assess learners' interpretations and analysis of visual media, providing feedback that guides improvement and deepens understanding. After letting them after developing a specific type of material, we are to also provide feedback and assessment as to how that specific material operates, or how that specific material goes by your learning, or goes through your learning. Now let's proceed to number 7, which states that ensure accessibility. This is where we select materials that are accessible to all learners, considering factors like visual impairments and cultural diversity, and provide alternative text or description when necessary. This, for example, in this part is that if you are going to have a student who is visually impaired, then you are not to display a specific type of material that is, for example, a bulletin board. You are not to display a bulletin board when your student is visually impaired. Rather, you are to provide, for example, audio clips that is in accordance with the student's needs, which is someone who is visually impaired, who cannot see but can hear. So you are to use audio clips, or it could be podcast or any other materials, something that needs the eyes to see. All right. Now, since we're now done with the guidelines, let's proceed to the viewing models that help students to become better viewers. Alright, we have first the 3 C's and 3 S. This framework is used when films and videos are utilized in the learning process, which helps the student analyze the elements in the films. We have the 3 C's as the color, camera, and character. When we say color, it is very important to enhance the color of your film or a video in order for it to be captivating to the viewers. Second is the camera. It is also very important to take note that using the right camera or equipment in filming a video or a film, because it can help the color as well as the overall film be attractive and captivating to the audience. And lastly, we have the character. It is very important to pick the right character in a movie that is where they best suit the character in order for the film to be completely good. Alright, let's proceed to the 3 S's. We have story, sound, and setting. Before developing a video, it is very important first, or a film, it is very important to develop the story first. Second, we have the sound. If the sound is in its lowest quality, then the overall film will be also in its lowest quality. And thusly, the setting. It's very important to choose a setting that best suits the story of the film. All right. Now let's proceed to see, think, and wonder. When we say see, think, and wonder, this framework is used when paintings and photographs are utilized. All right. This um, routine helps students make careful observations and develop their own ideas and interpretations based on what they see when viewing a painting or photography by asking the three questions, which are: what do you see? What do you think about what you see? And what does it make you wonder? That is for see, think, and wonder. Alright, let's proceed to the visual thinking strategies. This framework is used when using selected art images. This is where students look into the images, talk about what they observe, consider the view of others, and discuss possible interpretation with the class. In this strategy, or in this viewing model, the teacher asks these three open-ended questions, which are: what's going on in this picture? What do you see that makes you say that? And what more can we find? So this is more about discussing possible interpretations. Now let's proceed to the different types of materials. First, we have videos or film. This is where we utilize educational videos and films to engage learners in active viewing. This encourages critical analysis by prompting discussions on themes, narratives, and visual techniques. This material helps in understanding complex concepts and enhances interpretative skills. Alright, let's proceed to infographics. This introduces to, or rather teaches students how to extract and synthesize information from visual data. This helps us analyze infographics, and analyzing infographics develops the ability to interpret statistics, recognize patterns, and understand data-driven narratives. Alright, next we have the interactive media. We have for example this as the social media, virtual reality, and many more. Now, incorporating interactive media such as educational websites, virtual simulations, and multimedia presentations, these tools engage learners actively, fostering exploration and critical thinking. Interactive media also allows for personalized learning experiences, enhancing comprehension and retention. For this part, let me explain why it allows personalized learning experiences. This allows personal experiences because the teachers would only give us, for example, a supplement of the topic, and then they will give the freedom to us if we are going to understand, study, and learn from that supplement. Alright, now let's proceed to the advertisements or posters. Using advertisements and posters helps to analyze persuasive techniques and visual rhetoric. Now, discussing elements like color, imagery, and messaging helps learners understand how visual influence opinions and consumer behavior. This specific material sharpens analytical skills and media literacy. Next, we have, or should we say, the last material for developing viewing skills, which is photographs or illustrations. This employing photographs and illustrations to interpret and critique visual storytelling. Activities may include analyzing the context, composition, and emotional impact of images. This enhances observational skills and the ability to derive meaning from visual cues. Now, integrating these materials into educational curricula or curriculum fosters comprehensive viewing skills, enabling learners to navigate and interpret the visual aspects of contemporary communication effectively. Alright, I think that would be all for the developing viewing skills. Now let's proceed to developing cultural awareness. Now let's start with defining what cultural awareness is. As you can see in your screen, cultural awareness is the ability to recognize, understand, and appreciate the beliefs, values, customs, and behaviors of people from different cultures. Now, let's talk about the importance of developing cultural awareness in learning materials. Let's start first with it promotes inclusivity. Promoting this, one of the importance of developing cultural awareness is it promotes inclusivity. This ensures that learning materials represent the diverse cultures, fosters a sense of belonging among students. When students see their own cultural experiences reflected in their education, it increases their engagement and sense of inclusion within the social environment. Next, we have it encourages critical thinking. Now, students being exposed to various cultural perspectives enables students to analyze and compare different traditions, values, and customs. This comparative analysis enhances critical thinking skills as students learn to evaluate and synthesize diverse viewpoints, leading to a deeper understanding of the subject matter. Next, we have it enhances communication skills. Now, in understanding cultural differences, it improves students' ability to communicate effectively in a diverse society. Now, by learning about and respecting various cultural norms and communication styles, students develop the skills necessary to interact successfully with individuals from different backgrounds, both within their communities and globally. Alright, now let's proceed to number 4, which is prepare students for global citizenship. Cultural awareness equips students with the knowledge needed to engage with people from different backgrounds. This preparation is essential in our international world where cross-cultural interactions are a commonplace or a common ground. Now, students who are culturally aware are better prepared to navigate global challenges and contribute positively to international communities. Next, number 5, we have it reduces stereotypes and prejudices. Being culturally responsive and developing culturally responsive materials help challenge misconceptions and promote mutual respect between individuals from different backgrounds. Now, by presenting accurate and diverse representation of cultures, these materials combat stereotypes and encourage students to appreciate the richness of different cultural identities, fostering a more inclusive and harmonious society. Now, by integrating this importance or these elements into educational content, not only enriches the learning experience but also cultivates a more inclusive, respectful, and globally minded, ready student body. All right, now let's proceed to the principles of developing cultural awareness. Let's start first with learning from experience or experiential learning. Experiential learning emphasizes acquiring knowledge through direct experience. In the context of cultural awareness, this involves engaging learners in activities that immerse them in different cultural practices and perspectives. For example, organizing role playing scenarios where learners navigate cultural dilemmas can provide concrete experiences that serve as a foundation for reflection and learning. Now, this principle or the experiential learning theory posits that learning is a process where knowledge is created through the transformation of experiences. Alright, let's proceed to number 2, apprehension before comprehension. This principle suggests that learners first perceive and experience information before fully understanding it. When developing cultural awareness materials, it is beneficial to present learners with authentic cultural artifacts, such as music, art, or literature, allowing them to experience the culture firsthand. Subsequently, discussions and analysis can help them comprehend the underlying cultural values and traditions of a certain community, or let's say a society. Now let's proceed to the effective and cognitive engagement with an encounter, text, or task. Now, effective cultural awareness education requires engaging both the emotion and the intellect of learners. Materials should include emotionally resonant content such as personal narratives or testimonials to foster empathy and personal connection. Now, simultaneously, providing factual information and analytical frameworks enables learners to intellectually process and understand cultural differences. Now, this dual engagement between affective and cognitive engagement ensures a holistic learning experiences for the students. Now, let's proceed to number 4, which is um, intake responses to an encounter, text, or task, or we say um, interpreting experiences. Encouraging learners to reflect on and interpret their cultural encounters is crucial for deep learning. Now, incorporating reflective exercises such as journaling or group discussions, it allows learners to analyze their experiences, question their assumptions, and develop nuanced understandings of other cultures. Now, this practice transforms individual experiences into broader insights, promoting intercultural competence. Now, let's proceed to the tolerance of ambiguity. Developing a tolerance for ambiguity is essential in navigating cultural differences, as it enables individuals to remain comfortable and effective in uncertain or complex situations. Now, materials can include case studies or problem solving, um, activities that present ambiguous cultural scenarios, challenging learners to embrace uncertainty and consider multiple perspectives. Now, this practice enhances their ability to manage the complexities inherent in intercultural interactions. Now, by integrating these principles into the development of cultural awareness materials, educators can create engaging, reflective, and effective learning experiences that prepare individuals to navigate and appreciate the rich diversity of global cultures. Alright, and now we are now down to the materials, which are literary texts, music, case studies and real life examples, art, documentaries, and lastly, travel blogs. Let's start first with the literary text. Engaging with literature from different cultures allows learners to experience diverse narratives and worldviews. Now, incorporating texts by authors from various backgrounds can provide students with multiple cultural perspectives. This approach or this material can not only enhance language proficiency but also fosters empathy and understanding of different cultural contexts. Alright, let's proceed to number 2, which is music. Now, music serves as a reflection of cultural identity and societal values. Now, exploring genres like reggae and dancehall, for instance, reveals their roles in political commentary and social change within Jamaican culture. Incorporating music into learning experiences can deepen understanding of a culture's history and contemporary issues. Alright, let's proceed to number 3, which is case studies and real life examples. Analyzing case studies and real life examples. Now, analyzing real world scenarios helps learners navigate cultural differences effectively. Now, case studies on overcoming cultural barriers in various settings provide practical insights into cross cultural communication and problem solving. Now, these examples illustrate strategies for bridging cultural gaps and highlight the importance of cultural sensitivity in diverse environments. Now, let's proceed to number 4, which is art. Now, visual arts offer profound insights into a culture's history, values, and social issues. Now, engaging with art from different cultures can enhance students' understanding of those cultures and promotes discussions about diversity and inclusion. Now, this material encourages students to appreciate the aesthetic and symbolic aspects of art, fostering a deeper connection to the cultural context from which an art emerges. Let's proceed to number 5, which is documentaries. Now, documentaries provide immersive experiences into different cultures, capturing authentic stories and societal dynamics. Films exploring the influence of literature and culture, for example, can demonstrate how narratives shape societal values and individual identities. Now, utilizing such documentaries in educational settings can prompt critical discussions and reflections on cultural interconnectedness or cultural interconnections rather. Let's proceed to number 6, which is travel blogs. Now, travel blogs offer personal narratives and reflections on cultural encounters, making them valuable resources for developing cultural awareness. Reading about travelers' experiences can provide insights into local customs, traditions, and social norms, enhancing readers' understanding and appreciation of cultural diversity. Now, these first-hand accounts or first-hand experiences can also inspire learners to engage in their own cultural explorations and foster a sense of global connectedness. Now, incorporating these materials into educational setting or personal learning journeys can significantly enhance cultural awareness, empathy, and lastly, global understanding. And that would be all for developing cultural awareness. And that would be all for chapter 5, which talks about developing specific types of materials. Thank you and have a great